All right, what's up, ICA? What I want to do today is go over a couple of our charts, go over a couple of the indicators that are showing, and also a little bit of volume as well. So with that being said, let's get into it. First things first, for SPY, I really want to point out, if I pull up this on the daily chart, this is a very important level to consider, right? The 200-day moving average, you'll actually see here. We went up here and we touched it and then came right back down and right back into this little channel. So we, it's still bullish. We still have this bullish movement, but understand here that this 200-day moving average very well, as on the way up is a very solid support. Once we break down, can be a resistance. So just keep that in mind. We do have that, and also the lower bounds of some of these lows over here that are creating resistance for us. In addition, we still haven't broken this upward trend. So keep that in mind too. We're still in this upward channel. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could imagine that this could be already a finished move, okay? However, you could even argue that that middle, we could have a longer wave 3. So this could be, we could have a bigger retracement and then another attempt at higher here. So keep that in mind. Things to consider as well. If I were to just draw, if you look at, okay, look at the volume here. The volume that we have is similar to, if you notice, low volume in terms of something like that. So as we get close up here, we start to show smaller bars down here. Really consider that we might be stalling out over here for a little bit, okay? So there is this little area right here. I can imagine that we maybe still have some more supply and demand to be dealt with up until, up until that range, okay? So let's give you some numbers here. All right, we do have the lower bound and resistance of this overhead, so right under 440. And also, like I keep saying, we're still pretty high up here, and we haven't shown this bullish behavior in quite a while. MACD is still pretty strong on the daily, and if you take a look onto something like the weekly as well, we are starting to get kind of high up there, but it's still not completely, it's not too high at this point. So there still could be movement upward. Just keep that in mind. In terms of the markets are now considering that the Fed is potentially going to be cutting rates in the future. Whether or not that does happen, it's still speculation, but that had a lot to do with the CPI, the PPI, and employment numbers that came out recently. So, all right, with that being said, let's also compare over to our VIX. Because you may also, like I kept saying, right? If we just keep respecting this yellow downtrend, bouncing off of it, keep going further and further down. If you notice, we're down in the under 20 now, okay? So with that being the lows now, the next low that you could imagine, we've recently been there is still, 50 cents down here. So, and then we start to attack previous lows, previous lows, previous lows. So, if the markets really don't think that we're in any sort of trouble of sorts, then continuing to respect this downtrend until we've relaxed down toward the 15, 16 range. And we haven't seen that since end of 2021, okay? So let's go into QQQ. QQQ still has a little bit of room to come up there, right? And if you do take a look at my previous predictions, we just kept going up, right? We didn't even come back down too hard. We came down a little bit when you came look a little bit closer into this. All right, so it came down, respected this area instead of this. That's fine. And went up respected this and went up. Okay, so that just simply means that this played out more like this. You see that? We can still come back down and retest. Okay. So from there, let's go ahead and readjust these. We are now going to involve previous values up here. And if we go up, we do have a nice little shelf above. And keep in mind, if I look at the daily for my, let's take a look at this. This gives me the exact number 34201 right here, right? That right now is the 200-day moving average. So QQQ still has a little bit of room to move up. And now that we've broken above and above this, keep in mind, these indicators are showing that we're quite high up, and we haven't, we're now back into the greedy range. Keep in mind, we're past this top part of this resistance. We did bounce a little bit and went straight through. So bulls are in control here. Keep that in mind. Now also, let's grab this volume profile, and you'll actually see too, we do have the majority of people that have bought and sold right up here as well. So right where that moving average, 200-day moving average is, I think that's important to see, right? Let's go back to SPY and let's pull that up too, because it's very similar for SPY. I just forgot to draw it. Okay. So the majority of buyers and sellers are still right where we are, right? A little bit above, but that will very likely act as a bit of resistance. So keep an eye out for that. That for this one is at the 435 range, okay? But if that group of people decides that they're bullish too and they want to purchase and add in on that and continue to buy there, we will break through that and continue heading higher, okay? But if these people have been trapped here for quite a while, the first inclination for those people, if they are bearish, may still be to sell. So how it reacts to that, keep in mind how that candle closes above or below that specific resistance is important for us to keep an eye on. Let's go into IWM. IWM, right? Keep in mind is the smaller caps, and it will usually be a leader in terms of, it's a little bit smaller marble jar compared to QQQ and SPY, and as a result can get pushed around a little bit faster and easier and can be a leader in terms of a hint as to what might be happening. Now my prediction here was completely up. It didn't go nearly as far down, and now that we are further up, I didn't expect our MACD to cross as high, but now that we are higher up there, it is very likely. See, we've got this curl. What we're looking for is if we can get that golden cross to come back, right? We had that golden cross, death cross here, or this was more of a bounce, so it didn't really cross, but death cross was right here. And just be careful though, this rally that we've had is about 24%. It's nice, but the thing about the indicator here for my stochastic that gives me a possibility and a thought that this could be, this could just be that bear market rally, has a lot to do with the way that this has been fluctuating up here. Now I know it does it a little bit back here as well, right? As you go up here. So notice here, the 1, 2, 3 down. Okay, that's the only big situation where that's happened here before. I was going to go a little bit further back, but that's going to go back to like 2008. No, that's gonna be too long. Okay. I'll pull up a chart a little bit later. Let's go into our big caps. Meta. Meta on the daily. We had our distribution. Now we're down here looking like it's very possibly accumulation. 1, 2, had our rally, went further down. Now we are at that lower end of support. We broke back up above into the channel again. So keep that in mind. We were down below, but this could be a spring action. This could be big money just trying to, stack up a little bit more, a little extra. And let's take a look at it real quick. Let's compile this with our weekly. So the buy up is a little weak right here, though. That's what I want to say. It's like we do have a decent volume, but even on the weekly, we're still meeting quite a bit of selling pressure. Now, the positive thing is it has broken a pretty major downtrend with a solid green candle here. So on the weekly. Then on the uptrend, let's take a look here. That didn't play out. This is already done. Okay, so we have a trend line going up this way. We're still respecting it, right? Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that uptrend. If we break that, look to see if we might retest this gap over here. Yeah. Because this is already acting as resistance. So we have our trading range here. If we break out of that trading range, so you could think of it in terms of Wyckoff, this is a big preliminary supply, right? Or we can look at an even bigger picture. We may have the PSY up here, the preliminary supply, and then we have the spring down here. So if this is a Wyckoff accumulation, we're looking for it to we're looking for it to accumulate, retest, sign a strength breakout, retest, sign a strength breakout, right? Last point of supply, sign a strength. So anytime we break into these, what you're looking for on the daily and on the weekly are some big green candles that close well into the next trading range. That'll give us confidence that we're now breaking into these new ranges. All right, keep that in mind. Apple's been leading the way. It's always, right? Remember I always was saying, like, remember 11 days of Apple, rallying. And look at this, look at how Apple's continued to just go up and up. But what I want to point out here is that the volume here is quite low, okay? You didn't have volume that low since what? Over here, back here, right? Let's pull up the weekly. So we're attacking the top end of that channel. Now be careful here because we have two parts of that. We have we have this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we broke back down. That's going to act as resistance. And then you have this down here. That's going to act as resistance. So, you know, the volume here, I know we still got a couple more, 3 more days for this to play out. Keep an eye out on that. If we continue to decline in volume, I do want to say Apple has a very solid chance of reverting down just a bit. Not, it doesn't have to be a ton, but it has to have some sort of relief here. And notice as well, while it did a little bit, right, you get some pretty solid quick red candles that were bouncing back up. We're still making higher lows, finding some decent support. So it is kind of clustering itself up here. So keep in mind, a little bit of negative divergence is starting to form. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Apple come back down toward that trend line that we're talking about. Maybe make a shoulder of sort, where you might have a head and shoulder form. So keep an eye out for that. Let's look at Amazon. Still strong, going up, hasn't really relaxed. I mean, you could say that this or that was the relax that we had, right? Kind of played out to what I said, and kept going up. We still are respecting the upward trend line. Keep that in mind. We haven't broken through that at all. Here's the thing. So we are starting to show some divergence. So you see how this keeps going up here, but we do have this MACD starting to slow down. Not the biggest divergences, but some divergences are appearing right here. You see that? So you do have this starting to come down, this starting to come down, while this is all still going up. Yep, back into everything's really, look at it, similar to SPY and QQQ, headed back toward that 200-day moving average. Very likely is going to meet some sort of resistance there. Oh, and remember here, keep in mind, what I did here was I took I think it was this one, I copied that, right? And I was just going to show you, if I layered this on here, be aware that it's still doing a similar action to something that had played out up here. If I layer it down here, we're right at the area where it originally did come back down. So just a word of precaution, right? Let the markets decide what it wants to do, and then use that reaction afterwards. Okay, don't be the one to predict it here, but let the action happen and then take your positions from it. Okay. Netflix. One, two, three, four, five. Okay, let's go in here. Well, it did not do a second retest, went straight up. That's fine. But the 5 did play out, right? Like we said. Okay. So that is your accumulation down there, right? You got selling climax or preliminary supply, selling climax, secondary test. You got your spring action, you got a sign of strength, last point of supply, last point of supply, last point of supply, continued sign of strength. Okay. However, we are starting to slow down right here. Let's take a look at it compared to the rest. Yeah, we're stalling out right here. That's not surprising. But that's a big sign of strength for the weekly from a few weeks ago. We are running out of people right here as well. We are quite far away, but here's an ugly look too. So something that this is weekly though, weekly death cross. Could that be a sign of more pain to come? Let's take a look at the daily. Daily, we're curling back up. We crossed quite a while back here. Earnings, they still make quite a bit, surprised a little bit. So, that could be your accumulation. I would say the next target would be up toward the shelf. If we don't really have any sort of macroeconomic issues, that would be where we're targeting next, right? We would potentially head up there in terms of if this is a real accumulations. We've already came all the way down. Now we've broken out of this channel, done our signs of strength. We're just now meeting new resistances. Netflix as a company, hold on. That's not terrible. Basic earnings or price to earnings ratio being at 22 is a little bit high, but the company itself still continues to do well. Profit margin maintains pretty high. So no, I think Netflix could be a position to be looking at to target toward that, just because it is quite far down in terms of averages and moving averages and the distribution, right? The entire distribution has happened. So you're not getting in up here, right? Getting down here, right? After you've shown signs of strength, that's what Wyckoff says is, look for those breakouts of that trading range. Okay, so Netflix, not a bad look right now, I would say. And another thing to consider too is that big picture, right? If I pull out to the weekly and just draw the long-term trend line. Do this from here. Let's do it on the right. Do you guys see that? The long-term trend line, we're still supported on it. So that's a good look for it. Okay. Google, I was just saying, be careful of this possibility. We do have this situation where, we could go up there and then bounce off. Okay. It looks like we're still doing what I said. We're just headed further up with Google. It is stalling out a little bit. We do have a bit of that Wyckoff accumulation look, right? We are running out of buyers, so that's the thing. I don't really love that low volume, to be honest. Right, we're stalling out right here and right here. So I do have a feeling this could turn into a trap type of situation where this going to be the spring before the drop. Let me see. Because the idea that I have here with Google is we're still pretty high up. I mean, yeah, with the split, the numbers look a little bit smaller. And here's the thing with Google on the big picture too. It is still kind of far out there and even far from the 200. So keep that in mind. Or actually, sorry, that's weekly. We are curling back up to it, but we haven't made it back yet. AMD, we'll do NVIDIA. NVIDIA bounced off that one. Still somewhat supported by the uptrend. This pink uptrend. Still supported. That's a lot of buying right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we could still have a fifth come. Let's see. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come down a little bit before we head back up. I'm thinking it's going to do something of a bit of a head and shoulders type of thing. I think this could even still come back down here before it heads up. So keep an eye out for that. A little bit, it's not the worst divergence. Yeah, I think we're curling down a little bit before we head back up. NVIDIA. NVIDIA is pretty much doing something similar to what I'd said. It's already played out. So to come back down, make a head and then a shoulder. So kind of did. It's just one higher. And then we'll come back down toward there. And very potentially head further up from there. We do have earnings coming up, so keep that in mind too. I feel earnings should be pretty good for it. Lower expected earnings. I feel like they should be fine. The only thing I don't like, I keep on saying this, I don't like this. They have to give you earnings 51 times for it to equal the price that they're at. So ultimately, you know, you're paying for a lot of future growth. And so that's the reason that I would be bearish on it. However, chip stocks are the future as well. They've always been the future. We can't get on without these chips. So, you know, there will be demand. Now the question will be though, which companies truly take over, right? Now you also have to think of companies like TSM, which currently command a lot of the space, you know, but they're going through their distribution as well. I've shown you guys, right? That's a very distribution. Here's your spring, your trap, your preliminary supply. You break down, sign a weakness, sign a weakness, sign a weakness. Now we're back here. There still could be another leg down. Just be careful. You know, I don't want it to happen, but there's, you know, geopolitical events that could actually cause a lot of problems for this, and it could head back down toward the 60 range. So keep that in mind. All right. There's a couple that we talked about. I'll pull up if you guys have additional ones you want me to look at, just go ahead, post them all. I'll add them in later. Roblox doing what I said, coming down to the bottom of the channel, bounced off the channel so far. So I'll take a look here. Oh, pretty much, right? Went a little bit back up to the top of that and then bounced down. So it is curling here, so it might be headed further down, back down to retest the bottom of that wedge. I also want to point out too, this type of shape on Roblox is a bearish shape though. So, right, it technically still has a flag coming down, and you have this type of a shape, which means that there's people here all willing to buy and sell too. So, as it kind of wedges in, if it breaks down, I would look for that head and shoulders look and for us to potentially head down. However, if we do break above these levels here, right here, we break up above here, I could see us retesting and trying to fill that gap, but probably reject it pretty hard the first time. So there's both directions on that. ABBV, still trading in that range. It is making higher lows here. Kind of just wedging itself into. There is that gap, but after this distribution, I feel like if it did come back up, it'd more likely reject it and head down. In terms of this, let's take a look at this volume on the daily. Volume's pretty weak right here, so keep an eye out for that. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to back down toward this. Right, it's just gonna, I feel like it's just gonna play into this range until next earnings, right? Probably continue and stay in this until there's a reason to break up or break down. Company itself is pretty solid though. They do pretty well. Price to earnings 20, profitable, good dividend ratio, but it's just that profit margin dropped drastically recently. Okay. Technical, right? Technicals on here aren't, I want to point out, you could pull this up here. More technicals on the daily says sell. These many that says buy or sell, etc. Right? You could rack your head around these for quite a while, right? Even what the analysts say. All right. Let's take a look at what chemo's in year. Let's see if we could see actually what it is that he saw as well. Right, look at that daily. Look at those divergences. Right, see that? Divergences. Right, look at this build here of the MACD and then the RSI divergences continuing. Okay, so just a good quick downtrend, but up here on the stochastic, the RSI looks real nice with that, and then the MACD as well, right? So what that means is that you now have these bounce areas, and that's where you get your nice little pop. Let's also take a look at Fubo. And then we'll end this off. MACD, curling, all kept going up. RSI, you guys see that, all right? This was here and then here and here. But again, this keeps going lower and look at that, okay? All right, I think you guys get the idea. We'll get back into this again pretty soon. If you guys have additional things, I'll try to do one, let me think. Friday, I've got some stuff to take care of. Probably should be able to try to do Sunday. But if not, you know, worst comes to worst, I'll try to record something, post it for you guys so you guys have it early enough to review for the weekend. But if you guys have additional questions, or if you want to, you know, start a conversation, ICA graduates, you know, we're more than happy to talk about it there. All right, chat with you guys then. Have a great rest of your day.